Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video featuring sacrifice patterns. I've set these at a more difficult level after a few requests by viewers. So we have 2,000 to 2,500 level puzzles, but if you're lower rated than that, you can still try these because you know there's going to be a sacrifice. So that'll make it a little bit easier for you. So let's begin here. And pause the video at any time if you need to think longer. In this position, it is white's turn to move. Black, it looks like white probably just pushed this pawn forward, trying to promote it, and it was attacking the king here on c8. So the king just stepped forward out of the check there. Now, if white pushes this pawn forward, then black can just capture it with his knight, so that won't work. What should white do here? What would you do in this position? So take a look at everything. Keep in mind there's a sacrifice involved, so we just have to figure out, how should we go about sacrificing? All right, well, it looks like white is behind. 3 pawns versus 5. Black has a pawn that's threatening to promote as well. The knight is blocking that or guarding that square to prevent this pawn from pushing forward. But if we're going to sacrifice something, how should we go about doing that? We need to get rid of this knight somehow because it's covering our promotion square. So if white wants to try to win, they need to do something about that knight. So what would you do in this position? And also, I might try something a little different with these more advanced problems where, maybe I'll try to calculate less or think less on my own. That way we can move the puzzles along a little bit faster. So I'm not thinking for 5 or 10 minutes on one problem. And then I'll pull up the analysis board after each problem, just to do a little deeper dive into the calculations. All right, so I'm thinking we go here, which immediately attacks the king. So then what? If that king moves, then maybe we have the option of jumping up here and attacking the knight. If the knight takes our knight, and then, well, let me play this out. So check, where would the king move? Maybe the king goes here to attack our knight. So the knight jumps up here, counterattacking their knight. If they take and our king takes, well, then this pawn could start running, but we would be able to, move our king out of the way. Maybe towards the center. Pawn would get ready to promote. We promote. They promote. Oh, they wouldn't be able to promote because we would promote with check. And then we would be able to go over, get behind the pawn. So I think that works. The only problem is if we go here, and then the king attacks our knight, and we jump up here attacking their knight, they could just move their knight. I mean, what if they move their knight up here attacking our pawn? Well, then I guess we could move with a check. All right, well, let's try and play this out. That way I'm not taking forever doing my own calculations. Then we can do the analysis afterwards. So I'm thinking we go here. Okay, that worked. Well, see, now it's even easier. We can just fork. Oh, they don't want that. Oh, wow. Okay. They do not like that move, but I thought that would work because now if we have a capture, king captures, if that pawn tries to move, oh, we can't get behind the pawn and stop it anymore. We would have to move. They could go here. We promote. Okay, so that's why that doesn't work. So maybe they want us to go the other way, or we just attack the knight immediately. Okay, we just go there and attack the knight. Now we can just promote the pawn. All right. Okay, so if I pull up the analysis bar, in case any of you are thinking about other possibilities. So if we go back to the beginning here, we had the king stepping forward because it was in check. It looks like the one and only move that works is knight to a6 here, check. So that's the best move. Now king to d7. King to d7 is best. Okay, I'll just show the moves that we played in the game. So that was best. Now knight to b4, because you keep an eye on this pawn, but you're also attacking their knight. So the best thing to do is capture. But then, of course, we would promote and white would just be winning. So if instead, what if the king moved to b6, attacking the knight? Well, then we can go knight to b8. So that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. Knight up to b8. Here, the best thing is not to take, of course, but knight to d8 or knight to e7. I mean, what if they just did this? Knight to e7, attacking the pawn. Well, oh, then there's a check. Okay, that would allow the check. The king would move, and then we could promote with check. Okay, so if we go back and look at the best or the most recommended move, which was that, same thing. Knight to d7. And then the pawn will promote. All right. So if we go back, knight to a6, check. So we saw that knight to b6 wasn't very good. Knight to d6. So if they recommend that, now what? Same thing, knight to b4 here. And then if they take, the pawn will promote. All right, anyway, let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so what do we have here? The next problem. And let me know, maybe you don't want me to show all of that analysis afterwards. I'm just trying something different. So next problem. Okay, here we go to the next problem. All right, we're looking for a sacrifice. What can we do? What should we do here for a sacrifice? Okay, do we sacrifice the knight here? But then if we do that, we have a pin, a discovered pin of this knight. So maybe that works. If we do that, they could just take this instead. Then what do we do? Do we go ahead and capture their knight? But then if we do that, our knight would be pinned to our queen. Oh, but then we would have the threat here. Okay, so if we can clear out this pawn, we'll have a threat of a check here, driving the king into the corner, and then maybe we can have a back rank mate, but we'd have to get rid of this knight. So I'm still thinking about that move. We take that. If they take our pawn, we take their knight. All right, so this one's a little tricky. Is there anything more forcing? I don't know. I think that's best. If we take that, if they capture with their pawn, well, then what do we do? I mean, we can capture there. All right, so another tricky one here. If we capture, let's say they just capture with the pawn. Then if we go here, they could take, we take, the king would have to move. And then what do we do? All right. Is there some crazier sacrifice where we bring the queen up here? And if the king takes, then what? I don't think that works. I don't know. My first instinct was to do this. If we capture there, if they just go ahead and take, well, then we can go here. They take. Then what? I guess we take. But their bishop's protected by their queen. And what's our follow-up after that? And after all that, we would be, what, behind? They would have an extra bishop. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe... Maybe we have to sacrifice deeper. Maybe we go here. They take. Maybe we take that pawn. If they take. Man. All right, I'm just going to play this out. There we go. So that's what they wanted, and they didn't even take, with the pawn. So now what can we do next? If we take their knight, they'll probably take with their bishop. All right, see, they didn't even take with the bishop. So that's kind of strange. What now? Hmm. If we go here, the bishop takes. Then we go here. The queen takes. I don't know. I don't think that gets us anywhere. Huh. Do we just, well, if we drop back and threaten to bring our rook up, well, the rook would just be captured. The bishop would just, be able to capture here. So what am I missing? What am I missing here? Hmm. Do we? I don't know here. Not sure how to finish this out. Triple our rooks up. They're just gonna take here. So does that mean we have to sacrifice? If we do that, they could just capture. We capture. They could just go here. I don't know. No, so that's not what they want. Um, what am I missing here? We move over here and try and... No, they'll just take with the bishop. What in the heck? I don't know what they want here. Check. That doesn't work. Go there. No. Do we go there? That's what they want? Okay. Well, now we can check over here, but they could block with their queen. So probably we want to go here and then bring our rook up and over. Huh. Oh, or we can just pick off their bishop, I guess. Do they want that? We just grab the bishop. Okay, let's go back over this with some analysis because that was just crazy. All right, so we had b5. They're attacking the bishop. Knight takes the pawn here. So what if the pawn just captures? Apparently both those moves are about the same. Or no, now they're saying that this pawn captures a little bit better. So this is what I was wondering about. If they do that, now what? Bishop takes e6. Bishop takes. Queen takes check. King to h8. Rook at a to e1. Oh, okay. And after all this, white is ahead because they have a rook for a bishop. Okay. I don't know. This was just a tough one. This is more, about calculation when they get more difficult. So let's go back. b5 was played. So we take there. Looks like black's best move would be to capture our knight. But we already saw if that happens, capture, or excuse me, if they capture this way, well then it gives us time to capture. And then we just come out ahead or rook for a bishop. Okay, so back to the other example. If they take our bishop, well now we take with the knight, queen to e7. They like that better. Okay, so let's look at queen to e7. Apparently that's a little better, because now the bishop will be protected. Bishop to e7. And the best thing now is queen to e4. Oh, because you're attacking the rook. Queen to e4 or f3, you're attacking this unprotected rook. But, you can just attack. Oh, and now we protect the knight that way. King gets out of the line of fire. Rook to f2, getting ready to double rooks up. Rook to g8. We double the rooks up. Wow, this is pretty complicated. Not too complicated, but there's a lot happening here. Bishop back up to c8. Knight to f8. Wow. Because if they capture, we capture. Then we would grab their queen with our other rook. If they capture, we capture. If the queen captures, it would just be a big trade-off and we'd be ahead. So e4, queen takes e4. Now we trade off, take. But in this position, white is just ahead, enough to win. We have what, an extra rook versus a bishop. They do have the bishop pair, but we also have an extra pawn, and now it's passed. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. And, let me know, is this too much of an interruption when I have this analysis after each problem, or do you like that? Do you like the analysis? Just let me know. All right, on to problem 3. We just had an attack on our queen. What do we do here? If we're trying to sacrifice, well, if we look at checks, captures, and threats, and checks first, we could just capture here with a check. So that's a possibility. And the king would be forced to go into the corner because our knight is covering these other squares here on h2 and f2. So if we go there, and then we could just fork the queen and the king, forcing the rook to capture, queen would capture. Now what we have to look at is how will our opponent counterattack after all that. They could go here, but we could block. But then we could have a check down here, and that could be a problem, but we would be able to block that. But then they could capture this pawn. We would have time to castle, and then our rook would be protected. Okay, so once again, a lot going on. Do we sacrifice our queen and counterattack, forking their rook and queen? Well, let's look at the material. We have 4, 5, 6 pawns. Our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are down by a bishop. So we're down material here. We need to do something. Huh. All right. Okay. If we capture here with a check, the king would be forced in the corner. Maybe we can sacrifice this rook with a check. If they capture, oh, our queen comes over. So maybe that's how we finish this out. So we go here, checking the king. They do have another option. They could block with the rook, but then we would just capture, delivering check, and the king would be forced in the corner anyway. And then we capture the pawn, sacrificing our rook, and our queen could march over here and deliver mate. All right, looks like that works. So I'm going to go with that. All right. Now we sacrifice the rook. And if we go here, though, I should have looked deeper. The king, okay, that'll be mate as well, because the king will have to go here, and then our queen can deliver mate here on h2. So check and mate. All right. So, I guess there's not really much to look at in that problem, so I won't pull the analysis up on that one, because if we go back, it's all forced. We check, the king is forced into the corner, we check again. The only thing he can do is capture, we check again, and then it's mate. So all of that was forced. All right, on to the next problem. So what did we have here? Was that a capture? We have, all right. Well, take a look at this. Pause the video if you want to think longer. I see something that stands out immediately. If we look at checks first, what would you do here? What are the only ways that we can check the king, or the only single way that I see that we can check would be to go here, delivering a check and a discovered attack on the queen at the same time. So before I make that move, let me look at the material and make sure we're okay if we do that. So pawns, we have 4 pawns. Our opponent has 6 pawns, so they have 2 extra pawns, more than we do. Okay, and everything else is even. 4 minor pieces. No, we're down a knight as well. So we're down by 5 points. We're down by 5 points. If we give up a rook, that the king can take, then we pick off the queen. If they take our bishop, we do have another discovered attack with our queen, and then we're attacking the bishop here and the rook. So I think it all works. All right, here we go. Oh, they don't want that. Okay, so maybe we had something better after that. This discovered attack. Oh, okay. Once again, I need to follow my own advice. Look for checks first, then captures and threats. So if we go here, we have a double discovered check, checking with the bishop and the queen. And whenever that happens, when you have two pieces checking the king at the same time, you don't have the three possibilities when the king is in check. When a king is in check, you can capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run from the attacker. But, not always, but often. If there is a discovered attack like this, where two pieces are checking the king at the same time, the only option is to run. So now the king would do what? Run left or right. If he goes here, our queen can just deliver a mate. If he goes here to c8, we deliver a check. He can run to here, and then we deliver a mate. So check, check, and mate. All right. And, if I look at that again, it was all forcing. Check, the only thing the king can do is capture. Discover, double discovered check, the only thing the king can do is run here or here. And if he would have run to e8, then the queen could have checkmated immediately. But because he's running here, we still deliver check and then mate. All right, so I won't pull up the analysis since that was all forced and there wasn't, other options. Okay, queen down here to a7, I guess threatening to attack us on the back rank, but does that do anything? I don't even know if that really does anything because the king could just run here. And then what? Oh, well, maybe there's a threat if the king runs, if we have a check, the king runs here. We could have, well, that doesn't even work. I was wondering if there was any kind of attack with this bishop, but the rook could just capture that. Anyway, it's our turn, and we're looking for a sacrifice, so that's probably what I need to be more worried about here. Okay, maybe we sacrifice the knight. Something like that. We sacrifice the knight that way. That's an option. Another option might be to bring the knight over here with a threat to checkmate the king. That might be more forcing. If we go here, we're threatening to checkmate. The pawn could push forward, and then the king would have an escape. They would be able to run here. All right. So maybe that's better. If we go there, this pawn could push forward. Then what do we do? If we continue with our plan to deliver a check here, the king could just move up to h2, attacking our knight. And then what do we do? Maybe our plan fizzles out then. If we just take here, he would capture with this pawn. Then we could slide over here, threatening mate, with the rook and the queen lined up. So that might be a possibility. Well, now I have a decision to make. Have a decision. Do I bring the knight here, threatening the mate in 1? If they just go ahead and capture me, well then I can just bring this other rook over, and that would be an instant mate. But like I said, if I go here, they could push this pawn. And if I continue with my... Oh, no. Hold on, they can't. I overlooked that. If I go here, there's also an immediate mate threat there. So they would have to capture. And then I could go there. All right, so that works. Or maybe it doesn't. Okay, why does that not work? Oh, the bishop. Okay, wow. Yeah, the bishop can just go there. I guess if the bishop captures, I could capture. If they recapture, well, now I could go there. So I definitely have to pull up the analysis board here. Okay, so, maybe they want that. I guess that's what they wanted. Oh, and we have to be careful. If I move this one, the bishop will take it. So I have to go there. And then, what do we do? Do we give this rook up and take it with the queen? All right, and so now we still have this threat. And if they try to block with that, all right, well, let's pull up the analysis because there was quite a bit going on in that. All right, so back to the beginning here. Knight takes g3 is best. If I were to play that, well, then what? They just capture. We capture. And here, they should not take that. If they take this rook, well, then we just deliver a mate here. So the best move is what? Rook to e2, grabbing the open file. Oh, and threatening an attack here. Well, first they would want to go here maybe. And then a mate threat, after my king moved here. So I would have to play rook to e4. White would be in the lead here, apparently. So let's not even look at that any further. And feel free, as always, if you have comments and questions, leave some comments. I always enjoy hearing what comments people have, and some of them are helpful or very interesting. Any question that you have, it may help other viewers to answer their questions as well. Okay, so knight to g3. And what did they play? H takes g3. No matter what, black is winning after this move, it looks like. H takes g3 is best. Now what? Rook to h5. f3. But the best thing and the only move for black to be winning here is to capture. And then what did they do? They captured. They could just go rook to g. Rook to g2. That's about even. But first we'll look at what happened. what they actually played. Rook takes f3, queen takes, and now queen to a8 check, because there's a threat, an immediate mate threat right here. So rook to g2 is possible. Wow, but if you do that, there's also this attack. And that's going to cause problems. This is what they played in the example. King up to d7. So we could see how, what the best continuation is here. It looks like rook to g2 to prevent that mate threat. Then, it's bad when they recommend giving up your queen outright. Right here. Queen to d1. Oh, excuse me. This is queen to d8. I think I'm getting tired. Okay. Queen to d1, it's black's turn. So you go here. That's the best move, and there's a mate in 10 here. King is forced to move out. And the best move is not to take this bishop, but go up to h1 and start chasing this king around. So rook up to h1. Now they are actually saying queen to d8 check is the best move. What else could you do? Wow. Queen to c8, rook to g1. The problem is bringing this rook over. The king is going to be forced in the middle. And then you can move the rook down here and start checking. So let's say, I don't know. Something safer is played. What if the queen just goes there? Well, now you have a mate in 3, starting with that rook to f1 move. The king is forced to go here. Rook to f3 check. King starts running, but now you have that mate. All right, let me get out of that. Maybe I missed something, but I don't want this video to run on too long. That was 5 problems. So feel free in comments to let me know. Do you want more of this analysis after the problems? Unless it's forced moves and it's easy to figure out. Let me know about that, because I'm not sure. That was just something new I tried today to add to bring up the analysis page after most of the problems that had multiple possibilities. Okay, well, as I said, feel free to leave any comments, like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.